When you're using Betaflight or iNav GPS hold, does your position hold look something like this, kind of shaky? Well, there is a lot of factors that go into the location of your GPS unit on a mini quad, and there really is no great location for these things. And depending on some of the bad behavior you might see, either toilet bowling or this shaky GPS lock where you're not seeing toilet bowling, it most likely is having to do with location of the unit and what's around the unit. And again, there's no great location for this thing to not be around things. So let's talk about some of the things I have seen with working with GPS in regard to magnetometer, maybe that being off and what symptoms you're looking at. Or is it just the magnetometer is good, it's just there's other issues or electromagnetic interference with the GPS lock and signal itself, and some tools you can use in both Betaflight and iNav to assess where that's at. And just some of this is just some background experience that you're going to need. Hopefully you can pick up through this video of when you're seeing behavior like this, what most likely is the issue and where we can go to troubleshoot some of that. And a lot of my testing I'm doing with GPS units, Betaflight and iNav, you can see the setup I have here, where I have my GPS unit located nice up top, not close to any of the antennas back here, but I do have it next to this GoPro. And believe it or not, when the GoPro is on versus the GoPro is off, it makes a big difference in how well the GPS lock or position hold is with the quad. I'll get the same number of satellites, so it's not impacting number of satellites, but my HDOP number will change. And let's talk about that. What is HDOP? Well, HDOP is a horizontal dilution of position. It really is a factor showing how well your GPS lock is. Generally, the numbers you want to see are 1 would be ideal, but anything between a 1 to a 1.5 is a pretty good HDOP lock. And again, the more satellites you have helps with that. Anything above a 1.5 to a 2 is, yeah, okay. You should be okay. Once you start getting above 2 into 3, it's going to be pretty all over the place. But even a 1.4 can give you some shaking signal. And there is a little variability where your HDOP number might be okay, but you still see a little bit of shake. So it is kind of a mixed bag, but I can definitely tell when the GoPro unit's on, it's a little bit more shaky in position hold, and when it's off, it's better. And even doing some tests with turning off the Wi-Fi, or I think turning off the Wi-Fi for the connectivity you can get with a GoPro, the Hero 5 here, for a mobile app. So you can turn the connectivity off. I'm assuming that turns the Wi-Fi off. So what is the HDOP number? It's something, again, that you can show in your OSD, and you'll see it right here in my OSD. This is this 1.3 number aside of the total number of satellites there. Got my hands going off the screen there a little bit too much. But that's the number. In Betaflight, it's a little hidden for how to turn that on. So if I go into the Betaflight OSD menu, you won't see it here. At least you won't see it here so far. Hopefully it will come up soon and be an item here that you can select to turn on, but so far it is not in Betaflight 4.6 with the latest configurator. The online build of the configurator that's at apps.betaflight.com. However, you could go to the CLI and type in get DOP, and then you'll see it right here. This OSD GPS SATs show PDPOP. They don't call it HDOP in Betaflight. And what we're going to want to do is set this variable to turn that on. You can see I have that. So we go down to the bottom and type in set. We're just going to paste that. That would be normally off. We're going to go ahead and make sure that that's turned on. Type that in, type in save, hit enter. And then when your GPS number of satellites you have, it's going to add that little bit of text to the end there. That's going to have your PDOP, as they call it in Betaflight. So in iNav, they call it HDOP for horizontal. I would assume for Betaflight, it's saying PS for position, dilution of position, I guess. I don't know. So now with that turned on, let's go out in the field and do a couple flights. I'll show you something with the GoPro off, with the GoPro on. And again, you're seeing that location of the GoPro here in relation to the GPS unit. It's not like it's above it or anything. If I get my screen thing right there, you can see how the GPS unit is kind of above the GoPro there, but it's just in close proximity. Even having tinfoil on the wire doesn't really make that much difference. So let's go check it out with it on, with it off. All right, let's see what we get with no interference or anything. What are we getting for normal lock. You can see our HDOP up top there is 1.5.
Position hold.
We get pretty straightforward position hold. Can move to the sides and see how that's working pretty well. Okay, so now we got the GoPro on. Still got HDOP of, now it's just a little bit worse, 1.4. See what we get. A little bit of a breeze kicked up, I gotta say, from before. So now it's like, I don't know, 10, 15 mile an hour. Not too bad, actually. You can see it's coming from that direction. But just a little bit more shaky there, now the wind died down. HDOP is around 1.4. It's not too bad. You can see there, it's tough with the wind. You get down a little bit. Not too bad. Just a little bit of back and forth. A little bit of unsteadiness there. So let's go ahead and bring that in, turn the GoPro off real quick, and go right back to this location and see what we get. All right, so now we got the same, let's move it over this way. Same position. And yeah, you can kind of see HDOP has come down to 1.3, and it's not nearly as shaky as it was before. It's kind of more solid hold. Still same conditions. I mean, I just walked over and turned off the GoPro, and you can see that difference pretty immediately. You can kind of see it here, looking at it from standing there, how it's just a little bit more steady. All right, so let's bring it in, and now let's turn off the GoPro wireless settings, see what that does. All right, so now we're looking at the GoPro wireless settings off, but the HDOP, with the GoPro on, but the wireless connection settings off. It does not look like it's much better. It still bounces around. You can see the HDOP is like up at 1.7. And I've experienced this before, and I did this before. It's not the magnetometer that's the problem. You don't see toilet bowling. It's just the GPS lock is not great. And there must be the electrical or the something given off by the GoPro in that close proximity to the GPS unit. Coming back to our area that we were before. It goes a little farther up, a little bit to the right, a little farther back, right about here. And you can see just it kind of bouncing around. Not too bad there. HDOP has come down to 1.4, so that's a little bit better. But you can see how that HDOP number really is something you need to keep an eye on. Anything down below 1.5, it's pretty good, and you'll have a decent steady lock. But if you have an unsteady lock, you need to really have that number up there. And it's not only the number of satellites, but it's also that HDOP number. Again, we're looking for something below 1.5. Between 1.5 to 2, it's going to be shaky as all get out. Up above 3, it's probably not going to work very much at all. If you're down at a 1, that's like ideal.
Now, the other bad symptom you might see is what they call toilet bowling. That has to do with your magnetometer not being calibrated correctly or well enough, or the orientation of the magnetometer being off. Make sure when you do your calibrations, as I covered in previous videos, that you're doing it with the stick commands. I will make a link in the upper right-hand corner to that video. And make sure when you're doing the calibration in the field using the stick commands, you're doing all 3 axes. So you point the quad down, you rotate it this way, and then you rotate it end over end. So point it down again, spin it around, have it horizontal, rotate on the roll axis, rotate on the pitch axis while it's doing the calibration. That is key. Getting a good calibration, it's a must. Also, having your orientation correct is key. So you can see here when I point my quad due south, it says in this little gauge up there, due south. Now, I have noticed that if I just whip this 90 degrees to point east, how it will rotate and then kind of spin back a little bit. Don't be too alarmed by that. That's pretty normal. Also, do keep in check, what the other things you have around your quad on the desk while you're trying this. But in general, you should have some result like this. Like if I put it south, it says south. If I put it east, it says east. You might get a little kind of a snap back there. And it's not like, don't overlook like it, oh, it's precisely the same. You're still going to get a little variant with that, but this should not be like snapping 360 degrees around, or snapping, you know, when it's doing this little snapback thing that it does there after you move it quick. It shouldn't be doing like 90-degree swings. If you have a 90-degree swing happening, either the orientation's wrong or the calibration is way off. So you'd have to work on those. So again, I'll make a link in the upper right for a video where I talked about that. It's how you can understand your orientation and know that that is correct, not think that that is correct. And then we talk about calibration there, and I show you how to do that with the stick commands. And of course, don't forget your most powerful tool to differentiate between if it's the GPS unit and electromagnetic interference or it's your magnetometer is you can simply turn the magnetometer off. You don't need to have a magnetometer for GPS position hold and navigation modes. So what you can do simply, even if you have it calibrated and the orientation's all good to go, just go up to magnetometer here in the configuration tab and turn that off and hit save and reboot. Now when you see that reboot and come back up, you will see up top here, I still have my GPS unit, just not satellite fixes because I'm inside, that's why it's red, but my magnetometer's not there. Now, what's great about this is go out and do some flights and see if your position hold is still shaky. If it is, then it has nothing to do with your magnetometer or anything like that. What's also great about this is if you can just go back in here and toggle this back on, all the calibration and orientation settings don't get wiped out or anything. So you can test it with magnetometer off, with magnetometer on, just by toggling this back and forth. Once you have, hopefully, your magnetometer all set up, but if you have it set up incorrectly, that's a telltale way to double check it. Because if it works great and you don't get toilet bowling or the behavior gets better with the magnetometer off, well, then obviously the magnetometer is the problem that's causing the bad behavior. Okay, well, that is it. Hopefully this was helpful to peel back the onion a little bit on understanding the position of the GPS unit and some weird behavior that you might get just from electromagnetic things going on. I have seen when I've tuned large quads where the GPS units are in the back underneath the antennas, that has caused a bad GPS lock, and they were worried about tuning iNav for GPS position hold and the navigation modes, and it's not a tuning problem. It's a sensor problem. And they had to move the sensor on this large quad with, had all the antennas in the back and the GPS was hanging out the back like you normally see. They had to move it to the nose of the quad, and then all those issues went away. And there wasn't a tuning thing or anything else. It just that location. So picking a good location, it's very difficult on mini quads, a little bit easier on larger quads, but you really want to avoid, wires, motor wires, and all this other stuff. So you really kind of run out of spots to really put this thing that is, quote, quote, a good location. It is a kind of, any location is a location, and you got to try to pick the best location you can possible. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop them down below. Thanks, everybody. Hope this helped.